Nervous about the 2024 presidential race? Well, don't worry, just chill. That's the message the Biden White House team is giving to Democrats who are, in fact, worried about Joe Biden's age and current poll numbers. This is according to Axios. Mike Donilon, a senior White House advisor, is telling nervous Democrats that the issues of abortion and Donald Trump will propel Biden to re-election no matter what. According to Axios, in private conversations, some Democrats, however, worry that the White House aides confidence in Biden's 2024 re-election hubris.
The White House is ignoring concerns over impeachment talks, Hunter Biden's indictment, Joe Biden's age, and the auto strike facing the country, and instead is continuing to focus its message on, quote, protecting democracy, abortion rights, and a resilient economy. Axios writes. Democratic strategist and CEO of Elite Change, Dallas Jones, joins us to weigh in on these conversations currently going on ahead of 2024. Welcome, Dallas.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. So do you think that that's an accurate characterization of what the Democratic Party is saying? That basically there's no need to worry about the age stuff or the Hunter Biden stuff, that at the end of the day, the abortion issue will motivate enough people to come out along with the Stop Trump issue, and that Biden will persevere once again?
Well, I mean, this is exactly what they should be saying. This is what the polling suggests. These are the issues that Americans are concerned about. And so, you know, they have to create a sense of understanding that there is a pathway forward. The other part of this is that, you know, we also have to look at what the issues on the other side are. I mean, for the first time, the Republican nominee or any nominee for the presidency will have been indicted a number of times. And who knows what else comes up before the actual election. And so, you know, people are seeing gains in this economy. It's something that the Biden White House should be talking about. And so they're following the pathway that they see to victory.
But in poll after poll, Democrats, majorities of Democrats say they really do wish they had another nominee to choose from. That Americans of all political stripes are concerned about his age, and of course, you know, we're gearing up for just constant inquiries into the Hunter Biden matter, to the extent that, you know, maybe many independent voters, you know, swing voters will say, well, Donald Trump is facing sorts of, you know, criminal things, but Joe Biden's got this thing over here too. It's kind of a wash. Maybe I'll stay home.
I'm smiling because, sure, that's what the polls say, but they don't. They don't have another nominee. And so once the smoke clears and we get beyond this talk about another nominee, whether it be for president, another nominee for the vice presidency, this is the Biden-Harris ticket. And then voters will be forced to weigh the Biden-Harris ticket versus the Trump and God knows who ticket. And so when we add that all up, and when we begin to use our scales to weigh what is in the greater good of the voters, what is in the greater good of the country, democracy is at stake in this election. There have been attacks on abortion rights in this country. And people have to weigh these things. And so I think, you know, understanding what the polls say, understanding where the president is right now, today, the reality is that this is how this is going to shape up, unless there is some great uprising in the Republican Party, and they do not do what it appears they are going to do, which is to renominate Donald Trump. And so, you know, we on our side have to do a better job of translating to voters that, look, you know, we have been working to fix the wrongs of the last 4 years of policy before the Biden-Harris administration. We have been working to create a better economy. We have been working to increase opportunities for the middle class. This is the work. And so happy to have a conversation about, you know, where do we go from here? But, you know, what is being presented on the other side is dismal for this country.
Dallas, let's talk about public perception of Joe Biden for a second. From a poll released earlier this month from CNN and SSRS, Biden's job approval rating was at 39%, with 58% of Americans disapproving of his presidency thus far. 46% of registered voters said that any Republican would be better than Biden next year. We discussed a poll yesterday that showed, I think there were 3 Republican candidates, including Tim Scott, I think, and Nikki Haley, that in a head-to-head matchup with Joe Biden, poll suggested that they would beat Joe Biden. And many folks are remembering 2016, a period during which Hillary Clinton almost never got outside of the statute of the deviation of ahead of Joe Biden, except for I think couple of weeks after the Access Hollywood tape, and it was too close to comfort, and of course she obviously lost. So for those people who might agree with you that Trump is an existential threat, why not just have a primary to see if there is a Democratic candidate that emerges that can actually fare better against some of these people, not just Donald Trump, but also people like Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, instead of forcing Americans into the situation where they're having to support a lackluster candidate without any sense of what America has to offer.
Joe Biden is the president of the United States of America. We stand by his record as Democrats. Our party stands behind our president. Our party stands behind the gains that have tried to be that we are working to make.
But Dallas, the voters obviously don't. That's the question. So the majority of Democratic voters don't want Biden to be the nominee. They would prefer not to have a Biden-Trump matchup. So what do you say to the voters? I get that members of the Democratic Party, people who work for the Democratic Party, people who are bound to party first might feel that way. But what about the millions of American voters who feel like they're having this choice shoved down their throats?
Well, respectfully, polling is not a litmus for the voters. An election is the litmus for the voters, right? And so the voters will determine whether or not they truly reject this president at the voting station. Polling suggested, as you pointed out in 2016, that Donald Trump should have never been president of the United States. And if that polling would have been accurate, maybe we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation today. But it wasn't. It was wrong.
But Dallas, this is my question. If voters decide, why not have an open primary so that voters can actually decide, instead of doing what the Democratic Party has done, which is say there's not going to be a primary. We're going to change the order of the primary states in a way that is frankly advantageous to Joe Biden and disadvantageous to other candidates. We're going to promulgate rules that penalize vendors that work for insurgent candidacies. We're going to have a media organization that flatly states things like, we are not having a primary, ignoring the fact that there are people who are running in the race, whether or not you like those people, they are running, but the mainstream media is largely lying to the public about that reality. If it is up to voters, why not just have a fair contest and a primary, and if Biden wins it, he wins it. But if he doesn't, well, then the people will have spoken.
Well, and again, I think you made the case, like there is a primary that people are able to enter to. We're too far down the line. People have not entered into the race. And I mean, what are we honestly talking about? We're having a primary. No one has said that they are trying to challenge this president from this side of the aisle.
Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr.
Two people very much have entered to the Democratic primary, as Robby just said.
And they're running. They are running. They're running.
Yeah, but the issue is, Dallas, that there's no debates, right? The Democratic Party has chosen its candidate, as they argued in court back in 2016. They had the right to do when Bernie Sanders was challenging the way that they were running the primary at that point. They argued in their own court documents that they don't have to have a fair and open primary, that they can select candidates as a corporation, and that seems to be what they've done in this case. But the question is, while that is their right to do as a legal entity, whether or not that's in the best interest of the American public, who are seeing this and thinking, well, this isn't very democratic.
Well, I mean, again, RFK, his folks are out there. Look, I'm not advocating for any decision that the party apparatus has made in terms of how they're running the primary. I'm not advocating for that. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm not saying that that's wrong. What I am saying is that in terms of the polling and this presidency, is that there is a lot of work to be done. I'm not saying that the messaging and translating to the American public what the agenda has been and how it has benefited them has been handled in the optimal way. So what I'm saying is that there's still a long ways to go as we move forward in this election cycle for there to be gains in the current polling. We've seen it rise, we've seen it fall. And so, I think the question about how the primary is handled and what's happening, I think that's something that party officials have to ultimately be responsible for. And if it will cost us the American presidency as a party, that's something that those people that are in charge of making these decisions will have to be held accountable for.
Dallas Jones, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.